Hi guys, I'm Dimension Jumper. Today we're reviewing The Legend of Zelda Hyrule Historia. Now this is a collaboration between Nintendo and Dark Horse Books, and this is basically a book filled with information and concept art from the Legend of Zelda series. And this is a really interesting book because as before we've got stuff the timeline, some information about some of the games, like this one about the original Legend of Zelda, and various other things to know about the Legend of Zelda. The downside to this book is that it only covers the game starting from the first Legend of Zelda game all the way up to Skyward Sword. So this book is a bit outdated in terms of the amount of games that have been released after Skyward Sword. So A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, Breath of the Wild, and yeah, so basically it is a bit out of date because those games have been released and there have been no other books about it. I don't think about as an updated version. I'm not 100% sure, but excluding those games, this book is really interesting because you get to learn more about the Legend of Zelda series and little details. So for example, if you're a new fan and you read bits of Hyrule Historia, you'll get to learn a lot more of the lore in the games. So for example, if you're reading anything about the original Legend of Zelda game, you'll learn that there was an evil prince and that he wanted the Triforce for himself, and that was thing. And it's really cool of how to see how some of the concept art and other things were basically brought into the Zelda franchise. So for example, let's say I wanted to find some concept art for some of the bosses or enemies. I would go to the concept section and just look at some things like Maladus. So here is some concept art for Maladus. So I think it's really interesting of how Nintendo basically went from here for Maladus to here in terms of its spirit form, and then from here in its final form to the form you see in the final game of Spirit Tracks. And it's just really interesting of how these concept arts any of these ones could have been ended up in the game. So for example, Chancellor Cole, if you remember Chancellor Cole from Spirit Tracks, he has his green outfit with his two hats, but in this concept art you can see that he's got a purple one. He's got various different forms, so it has Starvin or Brian depending on which version of Spirit Tracks you played. And it's really cool because you get to see designs you might not normally see, and some of the designs are really, really interesting. And you get to see not only enemies, but also some of the characters. So for example, if I can find a character, for example, again coming back to Spirit Tracks, Link and Gonzo, how Link's training engineer outfit was different in the concept art compared to the final game of Spirit Tracks. And I think it's really cool of how we can see undetailed designs and how they could have been in the final game, and how each character looks vastly different in both the final game and in the concept art. And another really cool thing that they added in this is a sort of manga section at the very end. So it's basically it's basically The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. It's basically a beginning before Skyward Sword was even started. It takes place thousands of years after Skyward Sword even began. So like, for example, here you can see like the Loft Wing, and also I do like how it begins, like the first few pages begins with like color, and then it goes into like traditional manga style, like how it goes like from color to like black and white, and I think it's like a really cool transition. And I think like Hyrule Historia is probably like, if you want to get into like more info about like the Legend of Zelda series, there's like really cool book to read. Like if you want to learn like little bits and pieces of the lore and how other stuff was created, then I suggest that you like find this book like on Amazon or something. I'm not too sure if this is still on Amazon. It could be. I'm not too sure. I bought this from a shop like a few years ago. And yeah, I think this book is a really interesting breakdown of the Zelda series. If it would be nice, it would be cool to have like a sort of updated version of Hyrule Historia, so that we can see like more like concept art for the Zelda games that have been released after Skyward Sword, so like Triforce Heroes, Link Between Worlds, Breath of the Wild. But I do think there is a book about Breath of the Wild and some of the concept art for that in that book or something. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think Hyrule Historia is an awesome book about the Legend of Zelda and how some things were made and stuff like that. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that review of Hyrule Historia. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.